hi, listeners. Thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of Meet the Agent. Today, we're joined by Kristin Garnett. We're going to talk about her business strategies as a real estate professional. Thanks so much for joining me today, Kristin. How are you doing?
I'm good, Megan. How are you doing? Sorry, Margie.
No worries.
I just called you Megan.
Okay, happens all the time. No worries.
Sorry.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I'd love to learn a little bit about you and your background. So if you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, well, I've been in it for about 5 years. Recently got my principal broker. So in some states it's managing broker license. Been around it pretty much most of my life. But I've got 2 boys who are 22 and almost 25 now. So growing up with them, or having them when they're growing up, I took some time off and did the stay-at-home mom thing, was the classroom mom organizer and all that. So I work part-time doing mostly HR, administrative, office management type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But really my focus was my kids and, being home with them. So once they got out of school, it was like, well, what am I going to do with my life now? So real estate was something I always wanted to pursue. And it was just a matter of a timing issue for me, being able to do that. And once they kind of went off on their way to go to school, it was like, okay, so, let's make this happen. And I did. I had the support, fortunately, of my husband. And, that was a huge factor for us, because in this business, to do it on your own, especially at my age, it's kind of tough. You need another income to be able to support yourself. So I did it, and I love what I do. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do when I grow up, but I'm doing it and I absolutely love it. And I can't imagine doing anything else.
Awesome. I love that. And I love how passionate you are about what you do. So you said that it's real estate, something that you've wanted to do for a long time. What about the industry was the most appealing to you that, really drew you to this career path?
Well, I've kind of always had kind of this nurturing, wanting to help people ever since I was a little kid, from bringing home stray kids in the neighborhood, that just, the latchkey kids or whatever, growing up in my era, that was kind of a common thing. And just wanting to always fix things. That's just who I am and how I'm wired. For a long time, I wanted to go into the medical field, going into nursing, because I could help people to do that. Yeah. And I think that's why I kind of gravitated to HR, because it allowed me, again, to kind of be there to help people. And with this, I just found it very satisfying. Commission checks are great and all, but, for me, the satisfaction is really being able to make a difference, help those new buyers, get into a home for the first time, or helping somebody who wants to, either upsize or downsize, getting into, a different type of a home, be able to sell their home and find something that they're really passionate about and that love and can make a new life in. So for me, it's about the satisfaction of making a difference. I love mentoring and training, and that's part of what I did when I was in human resources. Mm-hmm. And I still do that today. I have a handful of people that I'm kind of mentoring on a regular basis. And, I believe in the whole pay it forward mentality. Somebody helped me to get where I am, and I want to be able to pay it forward. And, what I ask in return is, hey, do the same thing, share your stuff. Don't, it's not, this is mine, you can't have it.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of agents out there that I've come in contact with that are very much like, I can't tell you my secrets because that's my information. And, mm-hmm. I believe we're all kind of working for the same goal, and no 2 people are going to do it exactly the same. So, why not share what you have, the knowledge base, and help somebody else? They can tweak it to fit their own means.
Absolutely. Definitely. And so, mentorship is such a huge part of it. And for you, being in the industry for about 5 years now, and like you said, kind of getting a little bit of a later start to it, since, you were raising your boys, which is such an awesome thing. And they're so lucky to have had you to grow up with, of course. But who would you say was your mentor when you were getting started, a few years ago?
Well, actually, it's kind of funny. My husband, we've been very involved in the athletic sports programs and stuff here with my boys. They both were baseball players, and my husband was a coach in the neighborhood that my kids went to school in. So, our name is pretty well known in the community, and all the kids knew my husband as coach, and it was either Mom or Mrs. G.
Yeah.
So, one of the kids that my husband coached, his dad was a real estate agent at the time.
Okay.
And, I had kind of picked his brain. Tim Horst, he's my managing broker now, and he's the reason I got into SUMA, was because it's like, I like him. He, personality wise, he's very much in line with what I believe in. He's a person who gives a lot of himself and shares, and is not, has no qualms about, helping other people. And I just liked his mentality and his agency. I knew his family, and in a sense, it's kind of a family-owned business, and that's kind of their structure. Family is the forefront of everything that they do. And it just went along with everything that I felt. It felt like a second home for me when I went over there. And, I went in there because of Tim.
Definitely. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that you were able to have such a good mentor that gave you such a positive foot in the door with the real estate industry. So yeah, like you said, that was a really family oriented kind of brokerage and business. Is there like a specific specialty that you work in, or any specific clients that you work with? Is it more families or individuals?
Yeah, that honestly, it's a mixed bag. I'm pretty much equal with buyers and sellers.
Okay.
They both have their pros and cons. The selling, when you're on the listing side, it tends to be more expensive because you're paying for photography and, staging consultations, and in some cases home warranties, and, a lot of other things that you have to pay for. On the buy side, you're paying with your time. You might go to 50 houses, and I've actually done that over a period of like a 6-month time frame with one client, and maybe written 5 or 6 offers for them. And we've literally visited 50 houses.
Wow.
So, your time is valuable too. And so, you've got time on one side and the money on the other, but when it all comes down to it, it's helping. And, I love working with both and educating them. And, when I'm doing it, I even kind of, gear it towards that. I don't like that kind of used cars mentality. I really kind of reach out to them and, hey, use me as a resource. If you're new to the area, born and raised here, let me help you find, whether it's baby doctor or a place to go, whatever the case is, utilize my, knowledge base, and what I don't know, I can at least refer you to the right direction.
Yeah.
And even with buyers and sellers, it's the same thing. It's just, I have these books that I provide them for sellers and buyers, and it just kind of reconfirms everything that I give them. But when you talk with them, it's so much information that's kind of thrown at them. It's really overwhelming.
Definitely.
And so I really try to make it so that it's not such a overwhelming process for them, and try to streamline it. And, my whole goal is to make it as easy and stress-free as possible, because it is very emotional on both ends.
Definitely. Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. It's been said that, selling your house or buying a new house is as stressful as having a baby. So, incorporating that personal connection, and then, like you said, offering that, long-term connection and that long-term relationship, since you are from the area, and anyone that's new to the area, being able to recommend anything to them. That's great. And great way to connect with your clients on a more personal basis.
Yeah, no, and I love it. And honestly, I've made friends, I would say probably with about 80% of my clients.
That's awesome.
So I'm like regularly in touch with them. I've become, Facebook friends at least, and I checked in on them periodically, and some of them have, just started families. And so I'm watching their kids grow, and it's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Bringing back in that, family oriented kind of business. I like that a lot. So what would you say has been the most exciting or your favorite part of practicing real estate?
I think when it's all said and done, just the emotion and the expressions that I see and I get from these people. One of the biggest impacts that on me personally, and I mean, I'm sure it had a big impact on him too, is one of my first buyers that I had. was a little guy who was getting divorced, was living in a fifth wheel on his front lawn
Oh,
because his
wow.
ex-wife had the house.
Oh my goodness.
And, he's like, it was kind of by chance that we even crossed paths. And
Yeah.
I, was working with him. He's like, yeah, it's not going to happen. I'm never going to be able to get into another house again, not for a long time anyway. And I'm like, well, let's just try to work through this and see what we can do. Bottom line, we ended up finding a house for him, probably within about 2 or 3 months of us interacting. And the day that I handed over the keys, he broke down into tears and bear hugged me. And he's like, I am so grateful for everything that you've done. And I started crying because it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I cried at the happy commercials, but I was just like so touched. It's like, okay, this is why I do this. Despite all the obstacles that I face, this is why I do it.
Absolutely.
And, it was very cool. And I'm still in touch with him. It's moments like that, when I get to go in or, seeing just people's faces light up when they get the keys to their house for the very first time, or they've been able to sell their house so they can move on to their next venture. And it's really kind of a cool feeling.
Absolutely. And you said that was your first client?
That was one of my first ones. Yeah. As a buyer.
Okay. Yeah. What a positive experience getting your feet wet in the real estate industry. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. And even like on my selling side, the very first listing that I had was probably, I want to say about 3 months in. I had just sent out my letters to my sphere of people. And a friend called me up and is like, yeah, my mom needs to get out of her house. And, she's known you for 30 years. You're perfect for her. She loves you. We want you to help her. And I did that. And it ended up being, I double-ended my first deal because I brought the buyer into the situation as well. And it was actually really cool. Getting to walk her through the process and, being able to kind of play that mediator between the two and making sure that, both ends had what they wanted. And it was very satisfying and rewarding. So
definitely. And being someone that she's known for so long, she obviously trusted you, which I'm sure made the experience a world of difference to her.
Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously you've had some really great experiences. What's the hardest transaction that you've ever encountered?
There's definitely those. I've had a few, but I would say the hardest one, recently I had one that it was a divorce situation, and not a good one at that. I got the listing from a friend who she personality wise, she did not click with this person at all. So she's like, oh, you'd be a good fit for her. You take them on. So I did. And the person had their house listed at such a ridiculously high price. It was way off base for what the market would bear. And it sat for 45 days and didn't have anybody even view it.
Wow.
And we tried to talk to them and they're like, nope, this is what we want. This is what we're going to do. And it's like, okay, well, it's going to sit and we can't do anything. Then they pulled it off and she said, we're going to wait till spring. And then after like 3 weeks later, they decided to put it back on again. So we're going back and forth. And I finally convinced them to get the number down a little bit. We had a couple offers and they countered, and the person who countered really upset her with the number that they countered with because I felt the value was lower than what we priced it at. And so to spite the buyer, the seller said, nope, I'm going to up the price and take all the concessions away. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, are you really going to do that? Why don't we just go back to what we had? And she's like, nope, we're going to do this. And I'm done. I'm not dealing with it anymore. And so both parties walked away angry. And then a month and a half later, she re-ups it again. And I just, we finally got this thing sold, but I was just like so ready to be done when we had, bottom line, we got it done. She was happy. She moved on. Buyer was ecstatic. It was their first home. I worked really great with their lender. And as it turns out, I'm in contact with her now. And, we've got some stuff going on together too. But, I made friends with the agents and in the end, it all worked out, but it was a very long 8 months of
Long,
going
difficult process.
on and off market and just dealing with, well, because the ex was not on the contract, but he was calling all the shots. So trying to play mediator, communicating between the two of them and keeping neutral with them and making sure that they both felt included and that I wasn't siding with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it got kind of really messy
Yeah.
for a while.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Sounds like quite an experience.
Yeah. It was up till literally till the day we signed and recorded. It was a hot mess, but we got through it, and just through everybody staying strong and like serious teamwork from the buyer's agent, myself, and the lender to make it all happen. We ended up getting through it successfly.
Good. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that it all worked out, and I hope that, those kinds of situations are far and few between.
Yeah. That was like a really, really bad one. For the most part, they're all going to be hard, but what I love is they're all different, and, it's learning curve with each transaction that you do. So, I kind of try to take the bad and make it into a learning experience. And, so that the next time I get into a similar situation, I know better how to handle it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, good. Well, yeah, like I said, hopefully those are not very frequent. And it sounds like the good that you've had does make up for some of the more difficult cases.
Yeah.
So in your time in the real estate industry, what are some changes or developments that you've experienced over the years?
I think for me, the biggest thing is the learning curve with all the technology. I started with, I didn't start when everything was all paper pushing, but, I'm old school. I was doing electric typewriters in high school. So I still have to defer to my kids to say, okay, how do I do this? And, navigate through the Instagrams and the, the Twitter feeds and all that, just learning how to manipulate all that stuff. Now it's TikTok and Snapchat and just trying to figure out, how to make all these things work. It's, once I get going with them, I'm fine, but it's just, it's kind of overwhelming a little bit. So it's just trying to be open-minded and, keep up with the change. Because if you don't, you really have to stay on top of that stuff. Because if you don't, you won't make it in this business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything is ever changing. And then especially, this kind of leads into our next topic is with everything going on right now with the coronavirus pandemic and how much of, especially in an industry that's so face-to-face like real estate, having to adapt to, a virtual means of connecting and communicating with your clients. How have you, over, the past few months during the pandemic, how have you adapted your business? Honestly,
there hasn't been a whole lot of change. I've always been very conscientious about, scheduling appointments, which now is mandatory. You can't just pop up to appointments to go view houses and stuff. And there are some agents out there that will, just randomly go by and it's like, oh, that's vacant, we'll go in. I've always been very conscientious about, scheduling, even if it says vacant, show anytime, I would do that. So, now it's more about keeping gloves in my car and keeping masks in my car and, the Lysol wipes and stuff so that I can provide it to the clients if they want to do that.
Okay.
I've been doing a lot more like Facebook video walkthroughs. So I will tour the house and try to do FaceTime with them or instant messenger video chat with them and do virtual walkthroughs. Not the most ideal because you get into, especially a lot of the older houses and it's, the concrete walls and stuff kill your signal. So it makes it really hard to do that. But it's better than not doing it at all and staying in touch with it, and of course there's always the client who are like, I'm freaked out. I can't do this now. I have to wait till it's done. And, that's probably the big thing. I had about 5 buyers who were ready to go and they all put the brakes on and, that's where it's hard. So it's just staying in touch with them. I've been reaching out on like every couple weeks checking in. Hey, I'm still here, just checking in on you, see if you need anything. Let me know if you do, and I'm happy to pop over and help with whatever.
Yeah.
Go to the store, make a run, and just kind of regularly checking in on people, some of my potential prospects and current prospects that I have, and active clients even, just to kind of stay in front of them.
Okay.
And I think that that's probably the biggest thing, is keeping that communication line open with them.
Definitely.
And, otherwise just being flexible. I mean, I don't mind doing video walkthroughs. It is better than the alternative of not doing anything.
True.
And then I've got clients who are willing to go to the properties, and if they don't have a mask, I'm like, here, mask up, I got extra for you. So, just making sure. But I think that that's probably the biggest change as far as how we go about doing things now. I mean, with open houses, we can't have them. So we have to do video open houses, or do a virtual tour and then post that, or, just kind of being creative to get the marketing out there.
Definitely. And sometimes, pictures and videos don't always do a property justice, especially like you said, kind of those older ones, or if you don't go at the right time of day and get that perfect lighting, it's a little bit tougher for a home shopper to envision themselves in that property. But you do what you can, and it's important to remember this. It'll all be over soon, and you'll be back to normal.
Let's hope, at least the new normal anyway. Because I don't think, honestly, I think that going forward, at least in our industry, I think it's going to be a standard thing. I mean, we already had the booties there just, to keep things clean, but now it's going to be more for sanitation purposes.
Yeah.
Or sterilization type things. And I think that, having hand sanitizers at the listings, and having the wipes and, gloves, I think that that's going to be the new norm.
Definitely.
You're seeing that in every house that you go into, and they're making you fill out forms now. Do you have a fever? Have you been around anybody that's sick? And, a lot of the sellers want that, and they don't want people, if you've been in contact with somebody, they won't let you show the house.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Wow.
So it does definitely have impact.
Definitely. Well, I hope that everything is still going, on an upwards motion, and it's not hindering your business too much. And it sounds like you are staying well connected with your clients. And right now, that's, all that they can really ask for, is that you be there for them. And I'm sure they appreciate that a ton.
Yeah, and as crazy as it is, business is really booming. Our office alone, I think, has like almost 20 deals in escrow right now.
Good. That's great. Good.
I've got 3 myself. And it's been busy. It's like, you hit that sweet spot in the Portland metro area, is like between that $300,000 and $500,000 range, and houses are gone in 2 to 5 days.
Wow.
And multiple offers are getting, $20,000, $30,000 above asking price, because interest rates are so low. So it's kind of a weird deal. I mean, it's as busy as it ever has been.
Good. Well, that's a positive thing to hear then, at least as an outcome of all of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Wonderful. Well, good. So I'd like to, pull back from the pandemic, because I think we've all had enough of it lately. So I kind of want to talk to you about your book of business. And you've mentioned how you kind of have your guide for buyers and sellers. Can we dive in a little bit more of what that is and what you are providing?
Yeah, actually, I have these like 2 little books here. I don't know if you can see them okay, but it's just, I give these books, and when I talk to people on the phone, I don't give them out to everybody, because they are kind of an expensive business card. Of course. But it's like 100 pages, and it's a, step-by-step for buyers. It walks you through from the time you get in, what's the process to get yourself pre-approved, difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved, going through home inspection, going through the appraisal process, the hiccups that you can run into during home inspection, and, things that can go sideways on you. With a seller book, it's kind of the same thing. Talks about from the time you get into contract, things you can do to get curb appeal for your house, and things that maybe like inspectors kind of look for. I also hand them a little pamphlet that provides information on like the top big ticket items that inspectors will go in and call out. Because, typically rule of thumb is, if they're calling out big things that have been neglected, chances are they're going to call out every single little thing that comes along.
Definitely.
Where if your big things are in order, then they're less likely to squawk about all the little things. And,
Okay.
they might say that this is a, you might want to think about taking care of these particular items, but it's not anything that's an urgent matter versus this has to be done right now.
Yeah.
Kind of a deal. And it just kind of, because my feeling is, people get so much information thrown at them through this whole process, whether you're on the buyer side or the seller side. It's a lot of information, and the contracts are enormous on both ends. So the books just kind of are reconfirming everything that I've already talked to them about, and it just kind of gives them a resource to reference back to. And then in the back of each book, I have a little biography about myself, talks about me and my family and how I got into the business, what I've, done. And then it has some testimonials of people that I've worked with as well. And then of course I've got my email and my website and all that stuff linked on the back of it too. So it's something that if I, talk to somebody on the phone, I will mail it out to them, priority mail, and give it to them for free. There's a website link that I have that if they ping that, I can send it to them like that. So if I know that they're seriously thinking about it, whether it's on the forefront or 6 months, 12 months down the road, as long as I know that they're serious with it, I'll give those, I have no problems with sending the books to them.
Definitely.
Because my thing is it's a coffee table book. You set it out there. It's a quick read. You could probably read through it in an hour, but it's kind of one of those things, my face is on the front of it and my name is all over it. So it's like they see it and they pick it up and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Let me, give it a call and, try to stay in front of them. And it's just another way to stay in front of people, really.
Definitely. I love that idea. That's such an innovative way to, like you said, it's kind of a more an expensive business card, but that's such an awesome way to, especially, put your face to a name and stay, like you said, right in front of potential clients. That's a really great resource.
Yeah.
And with all of the resources online, you can Google just about anything, but, why not just have it all in one place like you've presented to them instead of having 100 different tabs open trying to answer 100 different questions?
Yeah, well, and it's just, just one step trying to, stay in front of them and make them remember you. Not very many agents give these books out. The company that I pay for the licensing rights that do this, anybody can, any real estate agent could buy into these. It kind of looks like we wrote them. I will say up front, I did not write these books. I'm not, and anybody that knows me personally would know that that's not my thing. But I do preach the information that's in here. I advocate for my people. I share the knowledge that I have to the best of my ability. And this just kind of reconfirms everything that I go over with them.
Definitely. Well, it's an awesome resource that you're providing. Talking more into your business, what is your approach after acquiring a new lead, whether that leads from a lead generation source or an internet lead, or maybe it's an in-person or friend referral. What are your first steps when you do acquire a new lead?
Well, I try to, I usually will either reach out via text or phone call with them. I first try to call them, and if I can't get a hold of them on the phone, I will try to text them or email. But I try to make it a soft approach. I don't like to be that hardcore salesperson because everybody hears that, and you do on occasion get the angry people that are like, quit calling me. Why do you people keep calling me? And it's like, it's kind of funny. I almost kind of make a game out of it because it's like for those people that are just so turned off by getting these phone calls. I'm like, first off, I apologize. But I'm not all these people. And this is the first time that I've called you, and I don't know who else has called you, but if you've clicked on any of these things, I said, I pay for this information. So you obviously had clicked or inquired. And I said, if you haven't, I apologize. I'll remove you from my list, but please don't yell at me, and I hope you have a better day. And they're like, oh, sorry.
Oh, you're like, sorry, I didn't mean to freak.
Yeah. So, for the most part, it's kind of funny because people's reactions is like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to take your head off. But, really it's like, hey, I don't know if you're looking now or in the future, but I just wanted to let you know I'm here if you have questions. I would love to answer any questions that you have and be a resource for you, whether you are looking or not. I'm here to help. So if there's anything that I can do, please feel free to let me know. I'm available via text, phone, or email. And, for the most part, they'll tell you, oh, I've got an agent, or, and I do qualify that because I don't want to steal anybody's people either. I mean, that's not what that's poaching people. And one, it's a bad thing for code of ethics. And two, I would never do that to somebody.
Yeah.
I would hope that nobody does that to me, but I know that happens. If they choose to leave on their own and come to me, that's one thing, but, and I can stay in front of them, but I'm not going to hound them to make them do it.
Definitely. Well, like you said, you do get those no's sometimes, you do get those angry people sometimes, and it brings up a good point that the real estate industry may be one of the toughest and most, competitive and challenging industries when it comes to reaching your goals and dealing with rejection. How do you stay positive?
It's hard sometimes, I have to admit it. I do kind of, you get 4 or 5 of those angry phone calls, and I wear my feelings on my sleeve. So, it's a, bruise to the ego, but I try to take it as a learning, and just, it's a constant kind of figuring out what is the best way to make that approach, and constantly trying to change the script or, the verbiage that I'm using to, win them over. I mean, ultimately it's kind of a challenge, and, playing that game to stay into it. So you're constantly trying to figure it out. I mean, there's no one way to really do it. And it really, it's like each transaction, no 2 transactions will ever be the same. Even if you have the same person, you're never going to have it be exactly the same, because you can't control what's on the other end. Every circumstance is different. And, every person that you speak with is going to be different. So you just kind of have to, I really try to connect with my people. If I'm in person with them, I'm better in person than on the phone, honestly, because then I can connect as a mom and let them see me as, I'm a mom and I'm big in the community. And it's like, if they're moving to the area, I've subbed in the school districts doing secretarial stuff. I'm still actively subbing.
Awesome.
When there's school. There's no school going on right now, but
right.
before they shut the schools down, I was doing secretarial subbing, and I did that when my kids were growing up because I could be at schools with them. So I can literally testify to the schools in the area. I know a lot of the administrators, and I know a lot about that. So it's like, oh, your kids are in sports. What sports do they play? And my kid's a baseball player. My other one did martial arts, and just try to find a connection of some sort with that person to make them see the human side, not the sales side.
Yes.
And and usually it works. And I think that that's really the key to the whole thing, is to make a personal connection, because once you do that, you've got them reeled in. It's when you use that sales pitch on them over and over again, they see right through it, and it just doesn't go anywhere.
Definitely. Absolutely. Well, good. You're a good person to know. Yeah, of course. So I know you've been in the industry, only a few years. Obviously you have a ton of experience, and you've had a ton of amazing clients. You've been through the challenges, you've been through the triumphs. What piece of advice would you give to an agent that's just starting out in the real estate industry?
Be true to yourself, for one. Don't try to be something you're not. This is not a quick money industry. People get these visions or aspirations of, oh, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to, make 6 figures my first year. And it's like, nope, it doesn't work that way. It's a lot of hard work. When they say 6 to 12 months, it's really 12 to 18.
Wow.
And when I started, I had my few meltdowns, and I had supportive people around me to keep me, pick me back up and kind of help push me through it, between my principal broker being my mentor, and my husband and my kids at the time. Because it is really, really hard. It's discouraging when you can't, you're doing everything you're supposed to do. And it's just like, okay, why isn't this going to happen? If you're in this and you don't have another support means of income, at least work part-time, do something, because you won't make money your first at least 6 months unless you've got somebody who's like waiting right away to buy something.
Yeah.
And even then you have to manage your finances, because, you know, you don't have taxes taken out. And I know people who it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting a $20,000 check and I didn't take any taxes out of it. And it's like, at the end of the year, it sucks because you owe all this money and you have nothing to pay. So it's, you know, being diligent with the money when you do get it, just being diligent with sticking to the madness. I created templates for myself when I did my letters to my sphere people to do my intro letter. I share that with anybody that wants to come in and ask. I'm all for, like I said, the pay it forward thing. And, you know, if I can use something, or if I have something that will help somebody else that they can tweak to help them, I'm all about sharing it and saying, hey, you know, tweak the verbiage on there to fit your needs and to fit you as a person. You know, this is unique to me, make it unique to you. And just stay in front of your people. I mean, I'm fortunate that I have a big sphere of people. If you don't, you know, because we have a lot of younger people who came into our office and they're just right out of school. So who's my sphere? You know, it's like, okay, who did you go to school with? You've got the parents of all the kids that you grew up with.
Yeah.
You know, if you were in sports with that, I've got, you know, all the parents from the sports that my husband coached, and I teach physical fit, you know, like group exercise. So Zumba classes and aqua classes. So I've got my students for that.
Yeah.
I have the school district. I've got, you know, all my contacts, administrators and teachers, and, you know, parents of kids that are in the schools, my own reunion for my own peer group, and then just close friends and family. So I was fortunate to have a big sphere of people, but not everybody does. And so it's like, take your parents' phone book and just start running down the names, you know, and trying to do that. But, you know, the biggest thing is just hang in there, because it's like 12 to 18 months. And most people usually between the 6 and 12 month mark, they're dropping out. They're just like, yeah, I'm not going to cut it in this business. I can't do it, because they get really discouraged, and it is very hard. So if you can find somebody who's a good mentor, who can keep you kind of your spirits up and keep you motivated, just don't give up and stay with it. Because it will happen. For me, it literally, I between that 12 and 18 month mark, it's like all of a sudden the gates just opened and things started popping. And then it was like, all of a sudden I had so much, I didn't know how to handle it all.
Oh, wow. That's good though. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
You're reaping the benefits in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. So it does pay itself off, and it'll take about 5 years before you get to a point where you can start building that base enough that your referrals will have referrals. You know, and you have residual business without having to chase it down all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So.
Well, I love that advice. That's great advice for, you know, prospective agents and anyone that's thinking about it, just sticking with it like Kristin did. And Kristin, thank you so much for joining me on Meet the Agent today. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and to learn about your business strategies and how great you are at connecting with all of your clients.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It was great talking with you too and meeting you in person.
Virtually. Thank you, Kristin.
Yeah, virtually.